The diner was small, noisy, and always smelled of burnt coffee. It was not the kind of place where rich people came. It was a place where truck drivers, tired workers, and lonely old men spent their evenings. In the middle of it all was Anna, a young waitress who carried trays with shaking hands but always managed to smile at everyone. Life had never been easy for Anna. Her shoes were old, her uniform had lost its shine, and her hands often burned from hot plates. Still, she worked from morning till night because she had no choice. Rent was waiting, bills were waiting, and her little brother at home needed food and schoolbooks. She was only 22, but she already carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her co-workers often whispered about their dreams, new houses, vacations, or big weddings. Anna never joined those talks. Her only dream was to survive each day without crying. Sometimes, when she was alone, she would look out of the diner window and watch expensive cars pass by. She would wonder how it felt to live without fear of money, without fear of tomorrow. But then she would shake her head and get back to work. Dreams were not for people like her. One cold evening, the diner was quieter than usual. The clock ticked slowly, and Anna felt her legs hurting from standing all day. Just when she thought the night would be ordinary, the door opened, and a man stepped in. He looked different. His coat was clean, his shoes polished, and his eyes sharp like he was hiding 1,000 secrets. He didn't look like the usual customers, but he also didn't show himself as someone important. He just walked to the corner table and sat down quietly. Anna noticed him immediately. Something about the way he sat, calm and confident, made her curious. She took a deep breath, grabbed her notepad, and walked over to his table. "Good evening," she said with her usual gentle smile. "What would you like to order?" The man looked at her for a moment, as if studying her face. Then he said softly, "Just coffee." His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that Anna could not understand. She quickly brought him the coffee and placed it in front of him. Most customers never looked at her twice, but this man kept watching her with quiet interest. It made her nervous, but she tried to ignore it. As the night went on, Anna kept serving other tables, but her eyes always moved back to the stranger. He wasn't eating, he wasn't reading, and he wasn't talking to anyone. He just sat there, sipping his coffee slowly, as if he was waiting for something, or maybe someone. Anna's heart told her he was not an ordinary man. But she shook her head. Why would someone important come to a small diner like this? Still, deep inside, a little voice whispered that this meeting would change her life. Her shift was almost over when she noticed the man reaching into his pocket, searching for something. His face changed slightly, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. He patted his coat again and again, then looked around, almost embarrassed. Anna walked closer, pretending to clean a nearby table. Finally, the man called her gently. "Excuse me, I think I left my wallet at home." Anna froze for a moment. Most waitresses would get angry, call the manager, or demand payment. After all, she needed every dollar she earned. But instead, she looked into his eyes and saw something strange. He didn't look like a liar. He looked human. Tired, maybe even lonely. Without thinking much, she whispered, "It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll cover your coffee." The man raised his eyebrows, clearly surprised. "You'll pay for me? Why?" Anna shrugged and smiled softly, even though her heart hurt knowing it was her own money. "It's just one coffee. I know what it feels like to not have enough." For the first time that evening, the man smiled. It was not a big smile, but it was warm, almost grateful. He nodded slowly, then said, "You are different." Anna didn't know what he meant, but she turned away quickly. She didn't want her co-workers to notice what she had done. It was a small thing, but for her, even $1 mattered. Still, she felt lighter, as if she had done the right thing. When her shift ended, she saw the stranger still sitting in the corner. He looked at her one last time, his eyes deep and unreadable, and then stood up to leave. Anna thought that was the end of it. Just another night, another customer. She didn't realize that the man she had helped was not just any stranger. He was the richest man in town, and her small act of kindness had just opened a door she never knew existed. But that truth was still hidden, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. The night after Anna's small act of kindness, the diner felt the same, busy, noisy, filled with the clinking of plates and the smell of fried food. But inside Anna's heart, something felt different. She could not forget the stranger with the sharp eyes and the calm voice. She kept asking herself why she had paid for his coffee. She could not afford such things, But somehow, in that moment, it had felt right. Days passed. Anna returned to her usual routine, moving from table to table with tired feet. Customers shouted orders, children spilled drinks, and the manager kept reminding her to work faster. Still, she forced herself to smile. Nobody at the diner knew how hard her life was outside those walls. They only saw the waitress who always said, "Of course, I'll get that for you." One cold evening, when the wind rattled the windows and the streets outside were quiet, the same stranger walked in again. Anna's heart jumped when she saw him. He wore the same coat, his hair neatly combed, and his face calm as ever. This time, he didn't go straight to the corner. Instead, he looked around as if searching for her. Anna quickly grabbed her notepad and walked over, her hands trembling a little. "Good evening," she said softly. "Back again?" The man nodded, his eyes holding hers for a moment. "Yes. May I have some soup tonight?" Anna nodded and hurried to bring it. When she placed the steaming bowl in front of him, he leaned closer and whispered, "You paid for me last time." "Why?" She froze, her face turning red. She thought he had forgotten. "It was nothing," she muttered. "Just coffee." He shook his head slowly. "Nothing. To you, it was something. I could see it." Anna looked down at her shoes, unsure what to say. She didn't want pity, and she didn't want attention. But before she could reply, another customer called for her, and she quickly walked away. The man ate slowly, watching her as she moved from table to table. She worked so hard, yet no one seemed to notice. She smiled even when people were rude. She stayed calm even when she was exhausted. It was as if she carried a secret strength inside her. When the diner grew quiet again, the man called her over. He placed a generous tip on the table, more than she made in a whole day. Anna stared at the money, shocked. "Sir, this is too much. I can't take it." But he simply smiled. "Consider it a thank you. Not for the soup. For your kindness." Anna hesitated, then slowly picked up the money. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice shaking. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had shown her kindness. That night, after her shift ended, she stepped outside and saw the man standing near the street. The wind blew sharply, but he stood calmly, waiting. When she walked past him, he spoke. "You don't even know me," he said quietly. "Yet you helped me." Anna stopped, holding her thin coat tightly around her. "I don't need to know someone to help them. I just know how it feels when nobody helps you." The man looked at her with a strange expression, almost as if her words had touched something deep inside him. Then he nodded and said, "You are rare." She didn't understand what he meant. She just gave him a small smile and continued walking home. She didn't know that the man's eyes followed her until she disappeared into the dark street. That night, lying on her small bed, Anna couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about him. Who was he? Why did he seem so different from everyone else? Why did his words feel heavy, like they carried hidden meaning? The next day, rumors began to spread in town. Customers at the diner whispered about a wealthy man who had returned after many years. Some said he owned half the businesses in town. Others said he had left long ago, only to return richer than ever. Nobody had seen him clearly, but everyone was talking. Anna listened quietly, her heart beating faster. Could it be him? The stranger who sat in her diner, drinking coffee as if he had no care in the world, was he the man everyone was whispering about? She shook her head. It couldn't be. Why would a rich man sit in a small, noisy diner, talking to a poor waitress like her? But deep inside, a voice kept asking, what if it's true? That night, when her shift ended, she stepped outside again. And there he was, standing under the streetlight, waiting. His eyes met hers, and she knew in her heart that something big was about to begin. But Anna had no idea that her small act of kindness had already changed the course of her life. And soon, the truth about the stranger would shake her world in ways she never imagined. Morning came with the same heavy clouds and the same routine. Anna woke up early, boiled water for tea, and checked the few coins in her purse. Life was still hard, but her mind was somewhere else. She could not stop thinking about the stranger who had visited the diner twice. His words, his eyes, the way he seemed different, it all stayed with her. At the diner that day, the usual customers arrived, but something was different. People were talking more than eating. Their voices carried excitement, and their faces were full of gossip. "Have you heard?" An old man whispered loudly at the counter. "The richest man in town has returned." Another woman leaned closer. They say he disappeared years ago, built an empire in the city, and now he's back. He's worth millions. Anna froze as she poured coffee into a cup. She tried to act normal, but her heart started beating faster. The richest man in town. Back again. She thought about the stranger with the sharp eyes. Could it be him? She shook her head quickly. No, it was impossible. Rich men didn't sit quietly in diners, wearing simple coats. Rich men didn't forget their wallets or let waitresses pay for their coffee. Yet, no matter how much she denied it, the thought wouldn't leave her mind. By afternoon, the whispers grew louder. Everyone had a version of the story. Some said the man had returned to buy land. Others said he was looking for someone. A few even claimed they had seen him in town, but no one was certain. Anna served food quietly, trying to focus on her work. But deep down, curiosity was eating her alive. When her shift ended, she found herself walking slower than usual, her eyes scanning the streets. She didn't want to admit it, but a part of her hoped to see him again. That night, as she walked home, she felt it, someone was watching her. She turned, and under the same streetlight as before, he stood. The stranger. His coat moved gently in the cold wind, and his eyes locked on hers. Anna's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know why her heart beat so fast whenever he appeared. She forced herself to speak. You again? He smiled slightly. You sound surprised. I am, she admitted. People are saying strange things in town. About a rich man who has come back. Is that you? For a moment, he said nothing. His expression was unreadable. Then he looked away and said softly, people talk too much. Anna frowned. That was not an answer. So it is you. The man's smile widened just a little, but he didn't confirm or deny it. Instead, he said, why does it matter who I am? Anna didn't know how to answer. It shouldn't matter. He was just a stranger. Yet, something about him made her want to know the truth. She wanted to understand why he kept appearing near her, why he spoke to her differently than others. Before she could ask more, he handed her a folded paper. Keep this safe, he said. She blinked in confusion. What is it? Just a note, he replied calmly. Read it when you are alone. Her hands shook as she took it, her fingers brushing against his for the briefest second. Then he turned and walked away, leaving her standing under the streetlight, clutching the paper like it was something dangerous. When Anna reached home, she sat on her bed and slowly unfolded the note. Her eyes widened as she read the neat handwriting. One act of kindness can change everything. You will understand soon. J. She read it again and again. J. Who was J? Was it his initial? What did he mean by change everything? The next morning at the diner, the rumors grew even stronger. One customer claimed the rich man had bought an entire building. Another said he was searching for someone special. Everyone was desperate to know his story. Anna kept her secret note hidden in her apron pocket, afraid someone might see it. Every time she touched the folded paper, her heart raced. She couldn't believe that out of all people in town, he had chosen to give her something. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Anna found herself looking out of the diner window more than usual. Every car that passed, every man who walked by, she wondered if it was him. And then, just before closing, the door opened. The stranger walked in again. This time, the whole diner went quiet. Every pair of eyes turned to him. Some people whispered, some gasped, and others just stared. Anna froze where she stood, the tray in her hands trembling. The gossip, the rumors, the whispers, it all suddenly made sense. He wasn't just a stranger anymore. He was someone much more. But why was he always looking at her? The answer was still hidden, wrapped in mystery. And soon, Anna would find herself standing at the center of a truth that could change her life forever. The diner had never been so quiet. Every customer turned to look at the man who had just walked in. His presence filled the room like a sudden storm. He didn't speak, yet people whispered his name, uncertain but excited. Anna felt her heart pounding as her eyes met his. She knew then, he was not just a stranger. He was the man from all the rumors, the richest man in town. But why was he here again? Anna's hands shook as she placed a tray on the counter. She tried to calm herself, telling her heart to beat slower, but it refused. She could feel the stares of her co-workers, curious and suspicious. The man walked slowly toward his usual table in the corner, calm and confident, as if he owned not only the diner but the whole town. Finally, the manager whispered to Anna, "You go. He seems to like you." Anna swallowed hard and forced her legs to move. She approached his table, holding her notepad tightly, though she already knew he wouldn't order much. "Good evening," she said softly. He looked up, and there it was again, that steady gaze that made her feel both nervous and safe at the same time. "Good evening, Anna," he replied. Her heart skipped a beat. He knew her name. She hadn't told him before. How do you know?" He simply smiled. "A man like me finds answers easily." Anna didn't know what to say. She placed a glass of water on the table, her fingers trembling slightly. "What will you have tonight?" "Nothing," he said. "I didn't come here to eat." Anna frowned, confused. "Then why are you here?" He leaned closer, his voice low so only she could hear. "To see you." Her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she thought she had misheard him. But his eyes told her he was serious. Before she could respond, he continued, "Will you join me after your shift? I want to talk." Anna froze. Join him? No one had ever invited her like that before. She felt the weight of the entire diner's eyes pressing on her back. She shook her head quickly. "I can't. I have work." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll wait." And he did. For 2 long hours, while Anna served tables and tried to ignore the whispers around her, the man sat quietly in the corner, watching her with calm patience. Customers kept sneaking glances at him, wondering why someone so powerful would spend his time in a small diner. When Anna's shift finally ended, she stepped outside into the cold night air. She hugged her thin coat around her and took a deep breath. But he was already there, standing under the streetlight, waiting. "You didn't have to wait," she said nervously. "I told you I would," he replied simply. They walked together in silence for a while, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the empty street. Finally, Anna gathered the courage to speak. "Why me? Why do you keep coming back here?" He stopped walking and turned to face her. "Because you are different. Everyone looks at me and sees money, power, or opportunity. But you saw a man who forgot his wallet and offered kindness when you had so little yourself." Anna lowered her eyes. She didn't feel special. She was just a broke waitress trying to survive. "I only did what anyone should do." "No," he said firmly. "Not anyone. Most people would have judged me, laughed at me, or turned me away. You didn't." Anna's heart raced. His words felt heavy, like they carried more meaning than she could understand. Then, without warning, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. He handed it to her. "Consider this an invitation." Anna looked at it, hesitant. "What kind of invitation?" "To dinner," he said calmly. "Not here, not in this town diner, but somewhere better. I want you to see my world." She stared at the envelope, unsure if she should take it. Her instinct screamed that she didn't belong in his world. She was just a waitress. A poor, ordinary girl. But his eyes were steady, waiting, giving her no reason to refuse except her own fear. Finally, she took it with shaky hands. I don't know if this is a good idea." He smiled gently. Sometimes the best things in life begin with an uncertain step. With that, he walked away, leaving Anna standing in the cold with the envelope clutched tightly in her hand. She wanted to open it right there, but she was too afraid of what she might find. That night, lying awake in her small room, she finally unfolded the envelope. Inside was a simple card with elegant handwriting. "Tomorrow, 7 p.m. I'll be waiting. J." Her heart raced as she read it again and again. She didn't know whether to be excited, scared, or both. All she knew was that her life was no longer ordinary. The richest man in town had invited her into his world. And deep inside, she wondered, what would happen if she said yes? The next evening, Anna stood in front of her small mirror, staring at her reflection. Her hands shook as she tried to fix her hair. She only owned 2 dresses, both old and faded, and neither looked right for dinner with a man like him. After a long moment, she chose the plain blue one. It wasn't beautiful, but it was clean. She whispered to herself, "It's just dinner. Nothing more." Yet her heart beat so fast that it felt like the walls around her could hear it. At exactly 7 p.m., she reached the address written on the card. It was not a diner, not a cafe, but a grand hotel at the edge of town. Golden lights shone from every window, and expensive cars lined the entrance. Anna froze at the sight. She felt small, out of place, like a poor bird that had flown into a palace. A doorman in a sharp suit opened the door for her. "Good evening, miss. Are you expected?" Anna nodded nervously, showing the card. The man's eyes softened with respect. "This way, please." Her shoes tapped against the polished floor as she followed him inside. The hotel smelled of roses and fresh wood. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above her head, and soft music floated through the air. Anna's eyes widened. She had never seen such a place in her life. Finally, she was led to a private dining room. When the door opened, she saw him sitting at a long table, dressed in a dark suit that fit him perfectly. The man who once looked like an ordinary stranger now looked like someone who truly owned the world. "Anna," he said warmly, standing to greet her. "I'm glad you came." She swallowed hard and stepped inside. "This place, it's beautiful." He smiled. "I wanted you to see something different." Dinner was served, dishes she couldn't even name, food so rich she felt guilty tasting it. She ate slowly, afraid of spilling anything, while he watched her with calm eyes. Finally, Anna couldn't take it anymore. She set her fork down and asked softly, "Who are you, really?" He leaned back in his chair, his expression serious now. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then he said, "My name is James Donovan. I own several businesses in this town, and many more outside of it. People call me the richest man here." Anna's heart skipped. She had expected it, but hearing it from his own lips made her feel dizzy. "So, it's true. The rumors." "Yes," he said. "But money doesn't matter to me as much as people think. Most people see me only for what I have. You are the first who treated me as just a man." Anna shook her head, still stunned. "I didn't know who you were." "Exactly," he said with a small smile. "That is why your kindness was real. You gave when you had so little. You reminded me of something I had forgotten, that not all hearts can be bought." Anna didn't know how to respond. Her cheeks burned, and she felt her chest tighten. She was just a waitress, a poor girl trying to survive. Why would a man like him care about her? James studied her quietly. Then he spoke again, his voice softer now. "I invited you here because I wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to see who I am. And I wanted to offer you something." Anna froze. "Offer me what?" "A chance," he said. "A chance to step out of the life that has trapped you. I can help you. With your family, your debts, your future. You don't have to struggle alone anymore." Her chest tightened even more. Part of her wanted to scream yes, to accept his offer and finally escape the pain of her life. But another part of her hesitated. Nothing came free in this world. What if there was a cost she couldn't see? "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why me? You could have anyone. You could help anyone." James leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Because you are different. You didn't see me as money. You saw me as a man. That is rare. And I don't want to lose that." Anna's breath caught in her throat. His words felt heavier than gold. For the first time, she saw not just a rich man, but a lonely one. Someone who had everything yet lacked the one thing he truly wanted, someone real by his side. Silence filled the room as Anna looked down at her trembling hands. This was more than just dinner. This was a turning point. She could either stay in the world she knew, small and painful, or she could step into his world, uncertain but full of promise. Finally, James spoke again, his voice steady but gentle. "You don't have to answer now. Just think about it. All I ask is that you give me a chance to show you what your kindness has meant to me." Anna nodded slowly, her heart torn between fear and hope. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing for certain: her life was no longer her own. And deep inside, she realized the biggest shock was not his wealth, but the fact that the richest man in town had chosen her. That night, when Anna returned home, she sat on the edge of her small bed, staring at the envelope James had given her earlier. The memory of the dinner replayed in her mind again and again, the glittering chandeliers, the food she could barely pronounce, and, most of all, his words. "You don't have to struggle alone anymore." She placed her head in her hands. It sounded like a dream, but it also scared her. Could she really step into a life so different from her own? She was just a waitress, a girl who counted every coin before buying bread. What if she said yes, and then discovered she didn't belong in his world? The next morning at the diner, she tried to act normal, but her co-workers noticed she was quieter than usual. Customers whispered as well, some glancing at her curiously. Rumors about James Donovan were everywhere now. Some people spoke with admiration, others with jealousy. And though no one knew about her dinner with him, Anna felt as if the whole town could see her secret written on her face. When her shift ended, she stepped outside and found him there again, waiting. James stood by his car, calm as always, his eyes searching hers. "You look tired," he said gently. "I didn't sleep much," Anna admitted. "I didn't expect you to," he replied. Then he took a step closer. "Have you thought about what I said?" Anna's heart pounded. She nodded slowly. "Yes, but I still don't understand. Why me? Why not someone who fits in your world?" James's eyes softened. "Because my world is full of people who only want my money. You are the only one who showed me kindness when you thought I had nothing. That means more to me than anything I own." Anna's throat tightened. Part of her wanted to run away, to protect herself from disappointment. But another part wanted to believe him, to take his hand and finally escape the chains of her life. James extended his hand, his voice calm but steady. "Anna, I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to let me walk beside you. To give yourself a chance at something better." She stared at his hand, her own trembling. The decision weighed heavily on her. If she said no, she would return to her small room, her endless shifts, her life of survival. If she said yes, she would step into an unknown world, filled with both promise and danger. Finally, with tears stinging her eyes, she whispered, "Yes." James's face softened with relief, and for the first time, she saw something rare in his expression, pure joy. He took her hand gently, as if it was the most precious thing he had ever held. "Then your life changes from this moment," he said quietly. From that day forward, things began to shift. James kept his promise. He didn't drown Anna in riches, nor did he try to change her. Instead, he helped where it mattered. He paid for her brother's school, cleared her debts, and gave her the freedom to breathe without fear of tomorrow. But more than his money, it was his presence that changed her world. The man who seemed so distant to everyone else spoke to her with honesty. With her, he wasn't the richest man in town. He was just James, the man who had once sat quietly in a diner, sipping coffee, hoping someone would see him as more than his fortune. And Anna did. She always had. The town buzzed with shock when people discovered their connection. Some gossiped, some doubted, and some even envied her. But Anna no longer cared. She had found something greater than approval. She had found trust, kindness, and perhaps even love. One evening, as they walked together under the same streetlight where everything began, James stopped and looked at her. "Do you regret it?" he asked softly. Anna shook her head with a smile. "No. For the first time, I don't feel like I'm just surviving. I feel like I'm living." He smiled back, his eyes warm. "That's all I wanted." And in that quiet moment, Anna realized something. Her one small act of kindness, the coffee she had paid for without thinking, had not only changed her life but also touched the heart of a man who had everything, yet was searching for something real. Her life had been a struggle, but now it was filled with hope. And though the future remained uncertain, one truth was clear: sometimes the smallest kindness can open the door to the biggest change.